everybody. Welcome back to CMN 153. This is for our class for Tuesday, August 23rd, where we are nearing the end of our media review with digital gaming. That was in chapter 3. And I put that last, but as I indicated, there are lots of different ways that you can think about the chronology. Much like music, gaming has probably existed since the beginning of time, but digital gaming, of course, would be a much more recent phenomenon. And you'll notice that in the notes below, I've indicated our schedule that this upcoming Thursday is when your final project will be due and any outstanding journals that you might have. And also, I will be posting our final exam on Thursday at 1 p.m. It will be a series of essay questions, and I'll be asking you to choose 2. It's open book, open notes, so you can use all of the resources from the semester if you'd like. And that will be due 24 hours later. If we were taking the exam in person, that would be due approximately 2 to 3 hours after the exam began. And that's about as much time as you should be spending on that exam, 2 to 3 hours, though I'm giving you 24 hours. And I do ask that you send me that exam, much like you've been sending your journals, to my email, ruiz, R-U-I-Z, @gcc.mass.edu. And you'll also notice in the notes below that I have an article that came out on the 18th that I wanted to draw your attention to. I have a link to that article about how streaming for the first time has overtaken cable. And it's something that we were talking about when we were talking about the television section. And Stranger Things, which I had mentioned in terms of binging, was the reason why, in terms of this milestone, which I would always say this is the future. It's not the future anymore, it's the present. Streaming is the present and cable is the past. So we're right at that point. So games, some of the oldest media forms from ancient past. And what makes a game? There's an uncertainty of outcome. There are some agreed upon rules. There's an element of competition that's associated with it. There are elements of fiction associated with it, elements of chance associated with it, prescribed goals, and there should be some level of enjoyment, of personal enjoyment. And as you know, the trend towards more and more immersive experiences, in part, or mainly and always because of the internet, has led to a revolution in gaming. So you'll see that in the notes below, I've just given you a brief overview of some game history. In the 1800s is when there were mechanical coin-operated games. These are things called penny arcades, where you usually submit in or insert a penny in order to be able to play the game. Pinball machines, things of that nature. The 1960s is when computer video games began. 1970s were known for their video arcades. These are places where there will be multiple coin-operated games and also home consoles. This would be the beginning of Atari and their first game being Pong, which looks quite simplistic by today's standards. Basically moving a bleep back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, the bleep representing a ball in effect, hence Pong. The 1980s is when we began to have avatars, graphic interactive characters. 1990s, Sony PlayStation console, which gave much more sophisticated graphics than the Atari ever did. 1999 was the Sega Dreamcast. It was the first console with a modem, because again, as you know, the future of gaming was to be connected with the internet. The 2000s is where we saw wireless motion sensing controllers, things like Nintendo's Wii and Microsoft's Xbox for online play, which has become increasingly important in the gaming world. 2010s is when we started getting massive multiplayer online role-playing games. Things like World of Warcraft and virtual world simulations like Second Life, sometimes subscription-based. And of course, this is also where we would have Convergence, so mobile gaming and console entertainment centers. And gaming began to look much more like cinema. And some of the genres associated with gaming, much like cinema, is divided up into genres. You have action games, Halo might be an example. Adventure games, Myst would be an example. Role-playing games, Final Fantasy would be an example. Simulation games, SimCity, one of the first simulation games. Music games, sports games, dance games, you name it, we've got it. and gaming communities developed where they would have conventions and they would have virtual competitions. And games have influenced other media, things like TV and films. Think about Resident Evil, the game, and how that influenced the film industry, though film can also influence games. Some of the cons of gaming, which I'm sure you've heard of before, and similar cons have been raised for things like internet or television, can be addictive, can be violent, can be misogynistic, and very sedentary. Some of the pros, and again, similar things could be said for the internet or for television. Cognitive development, motivational development, emotional development, and social development. The future probably is virtual reality. And while there have been some experiments with virtual reality, my suspicion is that we've come nowhere close to the capabilities of virtual reality. And if you were interested in gaming, there is a great documentary from the History Channel entitled Game Changers Inside the Video Game Wars. It came out in 2019. It's an hour and 25 minutes. I'm not asking you to watch that. But it gives a nice overview of the history of some of the main players with developing video games. And you can see the full video. It's not available online, unfortunately, I suspect because of copyright. You can see the full video on the GCC Library Canopy system, but the trailer you can access. That's available online on YouTube. And you can see in the notes below, I've given you that 1-minute trailer so that you can get an idea of what that documentary is about and whether or not you wanted to watch that documentary on your own. What I do want you to watch, though, is a piece called Should You Really Play Video Games? And this is from 2015, and it's 51 minutes. And I think it does a nice job of giving an overview of the pros and the cons of video games. You will have to access that through the GCC library. And you can see that I've indicated the link below. Then I would like you to watch, and that's 51 minutes. That came out in 2015. And then I would like you to watch The Transformative Power of Video Games. That came out in 2019. It's 11 minutes long. It's a TED Talk. It talks a little bit about, well, how video games can really transform our world. And then finally, as a sort of ending video for this semester, a TED Talk also. Whoever controls the media, the images, controls the culture. That came out in 2017, 14 minutes long, and I think that gives a good conclusion to the semester. So please answer the attendance question by Thursday, the 25th at 1 p.m. via our class discussion. Do you agree or disagree, and why, with the speaker's claim in that 2019 video, The Transformative Power of Video Games, that, quote, one of the biggest, most impactful changes in the way we live our lives is about to come from video games, unquote. And where that leaves us is basically my saying goodbye. Thank you for taking this class for this summer condensed session. And as always, I hope you are doing well. I am doing well. And our next class on Thursday will be the posting of the final exam at 1 p.m. Take care. Bye-bye.